The heat was getting too much, so we've turned down, brought some rain down into Centre Ring, and we're watching a beautiful display of our cattle make their way in. But here in studio, we're talking about an all-important service for over 1,200 farming families in Queensland alone who rely on remote education for their kids, often on stations. They're represented by a highly effective group called the Isolated Children's Parents Association, an entity that was started in Bourke in New South Wales in 1971, and it has evolved into quite the force. And I'm joined with Queensland President Louise Martin. Welcome, Louise.
Thank you for having me.
Louise, you yourself were raised on the land and required remote education.
I did. I grew up on a cattle property at Augathella, and I did School of the Air back in my day, from year 1 to year 7, and I had my papers marked in Brisbane, and I had my School of the Air teacher on a scratchy two-way radio in Charleville coming out of the RFDS. And then I went to boarding school in grade 8, and that's sort of just how we did it.
I understand your mother before you was quite formative in this group.
She certainly is, and has been involved with ICPA since its inception, and was the founding president of the Augathella branch, and she's currently patron of ICPA Queensland. So the passion has never waned, even though she's 84 now.
You and your husband raised 2 children, yes, also requiring education in this format.
They did. They actually did prep in year 1 through Charleville School and distance education, and then we moved closer to Tambo. So they actually caught the school bus to town after that. But still, that comes with its challenges as well, and conveyance allowance, and access to the school, and learning at a small school and multi-age classrooms. And there's a whole lot of things we deal with there too, to ensure that the kids and the teachers are getting their best outcomes.
Louise, we're watching the Murray Greys on screen now, and we've been celebrating this week. The Murray Greys have just been sent to Africa, Botswana, and to the UAE. The royal family over there really interested in them. Tell us about the property that you ran raising your girls.
Well, I'm infiltrating here a bit because we run merino sheep on our property, but I do have it. My happy place is my 100 red Brahman cows. So my 3 days of the year doing cattle work is my favourite days of my whole calendar, and they're my pride and joy.
So I come from New South Wales, where we don't have the same distances in a lot of our rural areas, and there's high schools everywhere, and there's primary schools, and there's we don't necessarily have the same challenges to the same extent that some of the bigger states do. What are some of the really unique challenges that are faced by children and parents, families, trying to receive education remotely?
Schools of distance education do a fantastic job in primary years, and it's a wonderful education. It has been for a long time. They've absolutely got that nailed. But when it comes to high school, children are seeking more than just learning. They're looking to be social, build a peer network. They might want to play sport, and all of those extracurricular things. And so that's when families make the tough decision of either sending their children to boarding school, or what's most, to me, the most upsetting thing is that families are actually leaving our communities because they can't afford boarding school, and then they go closer in to access secondary schooling, and then often those families never come back. And that's the holistic picture we have to look at for rural remote education. How can we keep our families in town while able to having their children educated, and then coming back to the land or to their small town and being educated to help grow and nurture our agricultural industry.
So the domino effect is really quite profound in terms of if we don't have this available to people, we lose people from our rural and regional communities. Absolutely. And we're all worse off for it. Let's talk about the connectivity piece. It's been a theme of this week. Crucial these days.
Absolutely. ICPA has recently put a submission into the Universal Services Obligation Review, and we must always have our telcos be reminding them of our specific circumstances, that we must have connectivity. It's essential part of life now. It's not optional, it's essential. And the bush is always playing catch up. You can get 5G in the city now, and we're still on 3G. They're turning that off, and you know, we're continuing to chase our tails, which
You get
is
this sense just out of sight,
challenging.
out of mind all the time. And that's why the
Absolutely.
ICPA is so crucial to go and walk the
Absolutely.
halls and get the story out. Can we talk about, you talk about the scratchy radio back in your day
Yes.
in Augathella. What are some of the positive changes that you've experienced or witnessed over the last couple of years?
Oh, look, for me, it's like a Jetsons experience. There was a cartoon on TV when I was a kid called the Jetsons, and they were actually talking to each other on the TV screen, which seemed like unbelievable back then. So that has evolved, and that is the most amazing thing, that kids who are learning from home can actually look at their students and their teacher and listen in, and it's just a whole new experience. And the distance ed schools are also much better at doing catch-ups face-to-face in their schools, sports weekends and whatnot. I saw my classmates once a year at the at the Charleville's, you know, sports day, and that was it. And we had never seen their faces before, so it's really revolutionised.
Budget week next week, if you could wave a magic wand or have a direct line into Albo and say, I'd love these 3 things to get your attention, what would they be?
One, we want another $4,000 for the Assistance for Isolated Children, which helps with boarding costs. We want, as someone from ICPA once said, we want a telephone that works, we want a telephone that works regularly, and we want it working all the time.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a big ask, does it?
No, and another big thing we're really pushing for is we need to look after our young people who are doing apprenticeships and having to leave home to access apprenticeships, university, because you can't do that from home either. It doesn't finish when you finish school, our remoteness. So they're all really important things for us.
Louise Martin, fabulous to catch up with you and enjoying watching our Red Angus as
Yeah.
well. They've just popped off the screen,
Oh,
but I promise they were there.
I've had